This is not going to be the typical video in the same vein as my previous few have been. I'm not going to be really ragging on women in this one. I'm not really going to be my, what most would term my misogynistic self. So if that's not your thing, then you can click off. It's no worries. But man, I don't really take YouTube seriously at all. I don't even make money on this channel. Probably because the shit that I say is just heinous. And the people in power don't want y'all listening to anything I'm saying. But I wanna make it clear that I, just like you, am not a simplistic, simple individual. Just like you, just like all of us, except for the retards, I am a complicated individual. And it seems to get a lot of views, and it seems to tug at and sort of press upon some sort of cultural feeling when I talk about women in the way that I do. It seems to be how a lot of men agree, obviously. But I would be remiss if I didn't show that I am a person who, of course, has doubts. I'm not always certain. I have moral dilemmas, internal dilemmas. I'm not so certain as I portray myself to be in these videos. I also have a part of me that I'll try to express in this video, and most men will probably be very turned off by this. Because it's just, the way that I'm about to act and what I'm about to say is just shit that's labeled as undesirable, not appealing, shameful when it comes to like men especially. I'm sure we've all had instances, interactions with women where you sort of let your guard down, or you maybe divulged a part of yourself that you never show anybody. You divulged vulnerability, you divulged all this insecurity, you perhaps even cried, you got emotional, whatever. And she probably was like revolted. She was repulsed. Probably didn't last long after that. I've had experiences like that I think actually very much scarred me. It made me very scared and fearful of getting into anything serious with a woman ever again, and I never really did. After that one time where I kind of really, and it was too much, it was too much looking back at it. I got way too emotional and just, for a lot of different reasons. I was a very incomplete, damaged person that was really just very lustful. I was looking at her as basically just a fuck doll. But yeah, I had situations where I got very emotional with the woman, cried in front of her, telling her, you can't leave me, all this stuff. Don't leave me. I remember that night, like I was sitting in the car and she was just like, just sitting there. And then man, it got real bad after that. Didn't see her for months at a time. I wanted a relationship with her. Never happened. It was very traumatic. I really, most of my, interactions with women have been very traumatizing. And I always, and I didn't have the best upbringing in regards to, let me just, I'll just say I didn't have the best upbringing in regards to women, There were some issues there for sure. So, I am a very, I do not trust women, hardly at all. And I'm very aware that there are things that happened in my life that have made me this way. And who I portray to who I am in my videos, I think that is a part of me. I am that person, but I am also this person. I am also, a guy who does want love. He does want a woman, a good woman in his life. And he does want to hope that love exists, like real love exists, where it's very just, they do stuff for you, you do stuff for them, and you don't really think of, and nobody thinks about it. All the other formats or templates or frameworks of dynamics of how a relationship is supposed to be, the man leaves, the woman just shuts up and sits there, like that don't really appeal to me. I don't want a woman that just don't say anything and that I'm constantly telling her what to do. It's kind of nice because she's kind of like your little slave. It's kind of nice. But I would get very bored. I would be like, aren't you a person? At a certain point, I'd be like, aren't you a person? Like, don't you have personality? But then it's a balance, right? Because you don't want them to have too much independence and personality and just, want to do their own thing and they don't respect you and all this stuff. But it's like, if they love you, if there's an actual real connection there, then I think everything just kind of works out. So I do always hope for that. I am very aware that I could potentially be preventing that from happening. I am aware of that it really could be me, although I still do maintain that a lot of women out here are awful, terrible. I want nothing to do with them. And I don't think it has anything to do with my issues. Now, most of us men, like, we're told that we can't share stuff like this. Most men, if you shared stuff like this, you'd probably become an absolute wreck because you have emotions that you just never processed. Everything is suppressed in you. Everything is suppressed in you, and you just don't know it. You feel emotions. Men who don't emote, you don't express emotions, you do still have emotions, though. Just because you don't emote and you don't express your emotions doesn't mean that you don't have emotions. In fact, you could have very heavy emotions that you could be a very emotional person, without being expressive, without emoting, due to things in your childhood, the way that you were raised by your mother and father, by your friends and everything, how the world sort of treated you when you acted in certain ways, you were made to feel guilty and shameful for certain things. Now, personally, I grew up in a way where I was very comfortable. My mother and father actually, well, my mother mostly, but my mother very much nurtured my emotional expression, my emotional awareness, my emotional intelligence. So that was something that I never really struggled with. I was very much comfortable expressing, you know, insecurities and being more open and emotional and just kind of, you know, for some men, it's the opposite. You grew up and you were made to, you know, be hard, be a man, be a leader. Uh, don't show vulnerability at all to women. Don't show that you have emotions. All this stuff. So for you, it's going to take. You have some work to do on the other side, figuring out your emotions, becoming more emotionally aware, and processing all these emotions that you have suppressed and escaped for so long via porn, masturbation, alcohol, drugs, weed, nicotine, all that stuff. All your escapes are ways that we escape how we're feeling, the things that we feel when we go out in the world every single day. Now, for me, I was always made to feel guilty for being dominant, for being sure of myself, for being certain, for being selfish, for being having a I don't care attitude, not caring what women want. I was very much raised to always care what women want, to the point of it was way too much. And so that was a lesson that I learned, you know, when I got into the dating scene, when I had my early dealings with women, is that I was missing a huge part of how to deal with women. That was never nurtured in me when I grew up. So who I express in my videos, who that is a part of me. And it's a part of me that I never really was in touch with or developed. Never could express. I always felt guilty for expressing that person. Who I am in my videos, I always felt guilty for expressing, for being that person. And it's very freeing now, going through semen retention. And finally, you know, I've been on it for almost a year and a half now. That's not a straight streak, but it is total. And that was really my only numbing agent. I've never really been into alcohol or weed or drugs or nicotine or anything like that. I haven't even used really people as escapes. I'm very isolated. Like, I like my peace. Like, most people might say I'm lonely, but I don't feel lonely at all. I'm very much comfortable by myself. I always have been. I always will be, probably. But that was really my only escape. I was massively addicted to pornography and masturbation for my entire life. So now that I don't have that escape anymore, now that I don't have that numbing agent, I've been able to process and feel emotions that I was never able to before. And it is agonizing. It is very difficult to go through this process. It is terrible. It feels awful some days. You don't want to do it. You don't want to feel all this stuff. I mean, bro, I can't tell you how many times, like, I've been driving in, you know, the truck that I deliver stuff in, and Man, there was just one day where I just started crying for like, it must have been like an hour and a half straight. I was just literally just bawling. Didn't know why. Didn't know why, you know? Um, but it's like stuff like that's going to come up. Things that you just never, you don't know you don't know all the stuff that you have to process that you've never processed. And you're going to have to get in touch with this part of yourself. It's sometimes or oftentimes referred to as the shadow, the part of yourself that you have suppressed and numbed and hid from the world because you were ashamed of that part of yourself. Because early on in life, people made you feel guilty and shameful for expressing that part of yourself. And this is very difficult for a lot of men because most men, when they hear me talk like this, maybe a little vulnerable for you. You kind of like, I don't like that. This dude's weak. Or maybe that's just what you think. If you do what I'm doing right now, you would say that you're weak. If you did what I'm doing right now, you would be disgusted with yourself. Okay, well that's your perception of yourself that you are now projecting onto me. Shit goes deep. Shit goes deep, you know? So there's been a lot of my emotional body now today versus when I first started semen retention is so much lighter. Like, I don't feel emotions not nearly, nowhere close to as heavy as I used to feel emotions. The emotions would be heavy, they would linger. When you ever get angry, when you ever get sad, when you ever get frustrated, when you ever get annoyed, when you ever get nervous, when you ever get excited, the emotions linger and they're so heavy that they almost overwhelm you. You can't handle it. It forces you to act in emotional ways. Forces you to act without thinking, without having a rational, logical process to your action. And so now my emotional body is very much lighter, much lighter. And yet I emote and I express a lot more than I used to. I used to not emote or express. I was very much the stoic. Oh, the stoic. But the problem is, stoic is not an appearance. It is not the appearance of not having emotions or having emotional control. It's not the appearance of it. Stoicism is actually processing your emotions to a point where you don't really feel heavy emotions anymore. That's why you're able to, because you felt everything, and the only way to stoicism is to feel all that you need to feel every day. That is the way that you get comfortable processing and dealing with emotions. You get very adept. You get very familiar with emotions. That your brain now, like, it processes emotions just like seamlessly. Like you get, like, man, I'll be driving and things that used to really tick me off when somebody, cuts in front of me, all this stuff. I used to not react. I would just be a blank slate on the face. But when somebody would cut in front of me, just fire inside. The fire inside, I would just be like, just enraged. Now somebody cuts me off out there, I'll actually be like, what the fuck are you doing? And then literally it's just like gone, dissipates. It's literally just nothing. Barely feel it. And I'm fine. Like literally 3 seconds later, it doesn't even linger. whereas before it would linger very long. Our emotions are there whether you express them or not, or whether you think that you have them or not. You not expressing and emoting doesn't mean that you don't have emotions. In fact, it means that likely you are the most emotional man out of all of us. You're probably one of the most emotional men that live on this earth. And it's oftentimes that you see dudes that don't emote a lot. They don't express a lot. And they have this macho, like, oh, no vulnerability, no weakness, no insecurity, just macho, like, yeah. They're oftentimes men that can't really be around other men. They have difficulty participating and interacting with large amounts of people. Because when they interact with large amounts of people, they just, there's too much. There's too much. People will try to poke at them. Vulnerabilities might get exposed. They might be forced to talk too much, to talk in ways, divulge things that make them uncomfortable. They get, they start to get insecure, and then they mask that with super overbearing macho-ness, and it's usually the men that are the most stoic on the face, don't emote, anything like that. They're usually the most emotional, in my opinion. You can feel their emotion. You can literally feel it. You don't even have, a man doesn't have to express anything to me. I can feel your emotion, bro. Like, the fact that you don't want to emote and you can't express, that means that you're terrified to do it, which means that you got a lot of shit. You got a little shit you got to figure out. In this video, I'm just trying to express a part of myself that I consider to be undesirable, not appealing. Women don't like it. We've all been told it. You express insecurity, you express uncertainty, you express doubt, you express vulnerability of longing, of wanting something. Yes, I want a woman. Yes, I've had a lot of, mistakes that I've made with women in the past. But those women probably weren't developed anyway. That was a very damaged, toxic woman that I dealt with. I mean, I was very young. So, I probably wasn't dealing with a fully, healthy, trauma-free or post-therapy woman. The goal is, I think, to be able to talk about insecurities and vulnerabilities and the undesirable parts of what is considered to be stereotypically, weak, feminine, not manly. The goal is to be able to talk about that stuff and not get overwhelmed by it. Most of these men, if most of these stoic, like macho, like manly dudes, if they ever talked about this stuff, if they ever talked about their insecurities or whatever, they just break down. You literally see just a child. You'd see just their inner child just come out, and it would be, or they would act out violently. You just don't know. Like, you don't know what you would get. I think women are mostly attracted to, at least healthy women, are mostly attracted to men who understand themselves and are confident in expressing all parts of themselves. Undesirable or desirable, what are considered to be by society. Now, I already know that some men are really they're going to disagree with this, and they're going to want to, they don't want to. Who wants to act vulnerable in front of a woman? Who wants to be insecure in front of a woman? I don't think there's really anything wrong with it, unless you're showing heavy emotions, like you're making her feel it, like you're putting it on her, you're wanting her to approve of it or something like that. But once you lose like the insecurity about it, or the fear of her rejection about it. Once you lose the guilt or the shame about expressing those things, it's almost like, I think a woman would see, or a woman should, if she's anything good, she should see that and be like, wow, it's actually very attractive, because he can express what's considered the feminine part of himself in a very healthy, like, well adapted way, where he understands what he's expressing. He understands his vulnerabilities. He understands his insecurities. He understands that, and he's not, it's not unprocessed. It's not something that he's trying to put on me or expect me to approve of him or not. I mean, that's really the point that, I want to get to. Because it's like, if you really like don't care if you get a girl, and if you're really just like, you know what, I'm good with me, like, I'm just good with me, I'm good with being single for the rest of my life, well, then when you come across a girl, you should be able to act in a completely free way, in ways that society might tell you, if you act this way, you will repel her. But really, there's just a lot of misunderstanding there. But we're all complex. We're not so. It doesn't mean that I'm gonna stop making videos the way that I have been. Maybe me just getting this off my chest will change me. Who knows? But I am still a person who, I think there's a lot of crap things about women. But I understand that I don't fucking know. I don't have any answers, bro. I'm figuring this shit out as I go, just like you are. I'm just a dude, bro. I'm just a fucking 32-year-old that's made a mess of his life. I live in a basement with 2 Asians upstairs. Trying to make my life, decent. To get it, to get out of the darkness I've been living in for the past decade and a half. But yeah, this video's long enough, I think. That's it. This video.